Okay, so today we're gonna talking about the methods of formation and sources of contract law. So first of all, the methods of formation. So broadly speaking, the contract is a process that laws will enforce, and the contracts have the three requirements. One is the offer and acceptance. Two is the consideration. And three is the lack of the defense. So no defense to enforcement. And for the express contract, so the types of the contracts, we have the express contract. Express contract is have the oral and written contract. Is for example, if I promised you to give you $20 to do with the hair dyeing, and so that contract is express contract because that contract is formed by the language, oral or written. So the promise is still be the like the language. And the second one is the implied in fact contract. Implied in fact contract. So that contract is informed by the conduct. So for example, you go into the grocery store and you just pick up the items, and then you go to the cashier, and you will know that you need to pay them, and the cashier will know that you want to buy that item and just collect money. So they don't need to ask you, do you want to buy these items or anything else like that. So you just place that item to the cashier, and the cashier will take the bag for you, and you need to pay the to the cashier. So that is the implied in fact. Or you go into the office, the doctor office, and is automatically both parties know that you're gonna use the doctor service, and you gotta pay that service to the doctor. So that is the implied in fact, like is formed by the conduct without any oral language. And the third type is the implied in law contract or the quasi contract. So method of contract formation include the implied in law contract or quasi. Okay, so the third type contract is implied in law contract, or we can call it the quasi contract. So quasi contract is formed by is not the contract at all. So it's a remedy to prevent the unjust enrichment of the defendant. So for example, you're going to the contract with the seller of the house, and by oral. It's not the written, by oral. So you say that you want to buy this house, and the seller say, okay, I will sell this house for you, and you need to put the deposits like 1,000, and you give the deposits to them, and a day later, and that seller say, okay, they don't want to buy the house for you, so you cannot force them to sell the house for you to you, but you can take the deposits back because it's the implied in law contract. The quasi contract is prevent the unjustment enrich to the defendant. So you can take that deposits back, even though you cannot force them to sell the house for you, because that's by the oral and by land. So it needs to by written contract to be able to enforce that contract. Okay, and next one is a unilateral contract. Unilateral contract is formed by the performance. So, for example, you say that you lost your dog and you want to give the $1,000 to anyone found that dog for you. So anyone who found that dog will receive 1,000. So that's a contract, but it's formed by the performance of the other party. The next one is a bilateral contract. So bilateral contract is accepted with the promise by both parties promise. For example is you say that I gonna give you $100 if you dye my hair. So that is the promise to both parties, and the contract will be enforced. And the source of contract law. So sources of contract law, we have the common law and the UCC. So the common law is generally you can take the acronym RICE. R is a rental, like the rent estate. I is the insurance. S is a service, and E is employment. So everything is related to real estate, insurance, service, and employment. That is the common law. And the UCC is stand for Uniform Commercial Code, Sales Article. So that is including everything you can touch and is movable. So that is the style of goods. So that is a Uniform Commercial Code. Okay, so that is the first one. And the second part, okay, let's see. So we will going to move on to the elements of legal enforceable contract. So okay, so now we're going moving to the elements of legally enforceable contracts. Elements of legally enforceable contracts. So generally there are three requirements of the legal enforceable contract. First of all is that's the agreement made of an offer and acceptance. So it must have the offer and acceptance. The second one is the consideration. Have the consideration, exchange consideration. You need to give something and get something. And the third one is the lack of defense. So no fraud, no duress. If these three requirements are met, so there is an enforceable contract, and remedies are available if one party breaches. Then the elements of legally enforceable contract. So for the contract, it doesn't need to be in writing, but except the my less, the acronyms. My less is N is the contracts related in marriage, and Y is have the year. It stands for the year if it's greater than a year, and L is the land, and then the E is the executor, and G is the style of goods more than $500, and S is the surety. So to form the contract by accepting before the offer is terminated. Okay. So the intent to make a contract. To be valid, the offer must be sufficient for the reasonable person to assume that offer was serious offer to enter into the contract, and the offer's subjective intent is irrelevant. The contract law generally follows the objective theory. Would a reasonable person believe the offer was serious? Statement made in jest or frustration and understood as such by a reasonable person are not an offer. So what does it mean? So it means that the offer is the offerer, they intend to make the contract, so the reasonable person means that we are the reasonable person and we understand that person is taking the serious or not, or just kidding around. So for example, if I'm just being angry at the car because my car is doing something I don't like that car, or I'm having a bad day. So my car is a Toyota Camry 2023, and they say that okay, I will give somebody $50. Not give, but I will take $50 to sell this car. So you are the person just crossed by and then you heard that and then you say, okay, this is the $50, so just give me that car. We are in the contract. No. It doesn't work that way. So it doesn't work that way, and then okay. And the next one is the advertisement. So does the advertisement is the contract? No, advertisement is not the contract. Except is limits that advertisement limits the scope of person who can accept. So that will be considered as the offer. So for example, the advertisement you will see on the newspaper, so that is not the offer. It's not the contract. It's not the offer. It's just the invitation, seeking an offer, and okay. So for example, the exception of that, for example, if we are saying that we post it on the newspaper and say that I will give somebody $1,000 if they can find my dog, so that is the offer. And who find my dog, so that is the offering and accept that offer. Or we can say I will give the free drink for 50 people in the nightclub today, for the first 50 people in the nightclub today. So whoever come to the nightclub first, I will give them. Okay. And the terms must be definite and certain. So offer must be definite and certain in its terms. What is essential depends on the type of the contract involved. Offer for the sale goods generally need only include the quantity term. So for the common law, we need to include the price, the offering, the time, the quantity, and nature of the work. But for the UCC, the sale of goods, we just need to include the quantity. That's it. So for example, it's a good example. A and B is related to the service, but the service is the common law, and the common law they require a lot of terms. So in here they just say within the 3 days. So they have the time, but the price, they say the price to be agreed upon later. So the price doesn't include yet. So it cannot the valid offer because lack of the terms. So there are 3 requirements of the legally enforceable contract: an agreement made of an offer and acceptance, an exchange of the consideration, and lack of defense. Termination of an offer. To create an offer, the offer must be accepted before it's terminated. So that offer needs to be accepted before terminated. And it can be through the offerer they revoke the offer, and offeree they reject the offer, or is cancelled by the operation of law. So first one is a revoke by an offer. The offer can revoke the offer anytime, even though they promise that they will keep an offer open, but they can close the offer. Revocation by an offer. But in here, I just get confused a little bit about the one I'm studying for the next chapters. That for the UCC, an offer cannot revoke the offer within the 3 months, as I remember. I'm not sure, but I don't get it. I just get confused about this section. An offer here is the common law or the UCC. I think it's both, right? So okay, let's just assume that it is the offer for both types, common law and UCC. So the offerer can revoke an offer anytime before acceptance by communicating the revoke to the offeree. So even though the offerer promised to keep an offer, but they can revoke it, except if the offeree they pay money or they pay anything to an offer that called an option contract. So it is irrevocable option. So the offerer cannot revoke the offer before the acceptance of the offering. So for example, I sent an email offering to sell my glasses to the in this example they say, okay, I sent an email offering irrevocable. The next day, I received a better offer from another party, and I telephoned B, informing that I was revoking the offer. So that is the effective revocation, because I'm have the right to revoke an offer anytime I want before the acceptance. And the revocation, it can be expressed or implied. For example, if I offer to sell my car to B for 500, and B tell me that he wants to thinking about it, and the next day C, a friend of B, drives over to B house to show B the car she just purchased for me. So that offer is revoked, and it's revocable because I have the right to revoke it, and it's by the implied method. Like I didn't tell B that I revoked the offer. And the next one is the revoke by an offer. Offer rejection is say that offers, rejections, counter offers, and revocations are generally effective when received by the offering, where revocation is by publication is effective when published. Although the general rule is that all offers can be revoked, there is an exception to general rule which appears some frequency on the CPA exam, where consideration is paid to keep the offer open. It's called an option contract. An option is a distinct contract in which the promisor promises to keep an offer open in exchange for consideration from the promisee. Offeree pays for time to think about it. Okay, so that is to make sense, because the offeree pay consideration to get more time to think about it. So offerer cannot revoke the offer. And rejection by the offeree. So termination of the offer, so that the offeree can reject the offer, and once the offer is effectively rejected, it cannot be accepted. And the offeree can reject expressly, like oral or written. And the counter offer is considered to be both rejection and an offer, which means that the original offer is now the offeree who may accept or reject. And the mere inquiry is not the rejection or the counter offer. So what does that mean? For example, B offers to sell A a car for $450, and A says no. So at the time A say no, the offer is terminated. And if A later change his mind and then tell B that I accept, but A has at most made the new offer. So because no contract is created, okay? Or it says A offers to sell B his car for $400, and B says no, I will give you $300. So that is still the rejection same situation, but A offered to sell B his car for 400. But B says, can you make it 300? Okay, so that is the merely inquiry questions. So that is not the rejection nor the counter offer because they didn't say yes or no. But they just asking if is it good if they can take 300 instead of 400. And the rejections is effective when received. Okay, it's like the mailbox rule. If they didn't say any like the specific requirement about the rejection and receipt and the receipt method, so it just follow the mailbox rule. So for example, in January 3rd, Sam sent Ben a signed letter offering to sell his warehouse for $95,000. On January 5th, Ben wrote Sam a letter saying that he would not pay $95,000 because that price was too high. On January 6th, Ben was advised that similar property had recently been sold for $99,000. Ben immediately emailed Sam an acceptance of Sam's January 3rd offer. And Ben's letter arrived the next day. So does this inform the contract? Yes. Why? Even though Ben has sent the letter, that rejection, but that letter is arrived on the next day, the January 7th. Okay, but the acceptance, he emailed the acceptance on January 6th. Okay, so the acceptance is come before the rejection. Okay, so it still counts. And termination of the law, we can remember the acronym DD. I need to remember as well. DD, operation of law. DD. Debt, incompetency, destroy, and illegal. Debt, incompetency, destroyed, and illegal. So the next one is talking about the acceptance. So acceptance is the offeree's assent to enter into the contract. Like offers, acceptance need not to be in writing. Acceptance does not even require words. A simple nod of the head of four of the gavel can constitute an acceptance. who may accept. General rule that only the person to whom the offer was made may accept. Offers are not assignable, however, option contracts are assignable. Method of acceptance. Generally, acceptance may be made in manner reasonable under the circumstances. However, if the offer specifies the method of communications, that method must be used. Purposes. Acceptance utilizing another method is the counter offer. So for example, if I'm the offer and I'm specifying in the offer that the acceptance needs to be sent by mail, but you send the acceptance by email. So that is the incorrect method of acceptance. So that is called the counter offer. It is creating the counter offer if it is missed the deadline. So acceptance generally must be Can I spell this? Unequivocal. So, do you remember about the UCC? So the UCC is a sale of goods, and the quantity must be included in the contract. But for the common law, is need more terms. So, for example, the quantity, the price, the time, the type must be included in the contract. And for the UCC, is the minor changes to an acceptance can be made, and the mirror image rules do not apply. So what does that mean? So for the UCC, you are in the contracts that sell goods, and it doesn't require that when you take the acceptance, you don't need to be exactly the same with an offer. It can be like the minor changes. For example, if I state that I would sell these glasses for 500, but when you accept it, you say, okay, I accept the offer, and the price is the $490. So it's just like less than $10. It's a minor change. So it can be accepted, or they can say the mirror rule does not apply. But for the common law, the contract must follow the mirror image rule, which requires the acceptance to mirror the offer to be effective. If the offer say I need to buy this land by of $50,000, so I need to pay exactly $50,000, not the $4,900. So attempt acceptance that change some of the terms or ask the new terms is not a valid acceptance, but rather is called counter offer, which serves as the rejection. Okay, and generally effective upon dispatch, the mailbox rule. Acceptance are generally effective when they are dispatched if the properly addressed, known as the mailbox rule. Irrelevant if the properly addressed acceptance is lost or delayed. Method of communication specified. If the offerer required the acceptance be sent by a specific method, An acceptance sent by that method is effective when it is sent. Okay, and no method of communication specified. If the offer did not state how acceptance were to be sent, an acceptance sent by any reasonable means is effective upon dispatch. So what does that mean? Okay, so if the acceptance, whenever you send it, that is acceptance. Okay, so how to say that? I would say the deadline for the accept the offer is January 3rd, and it needs to be by mail. So on January 3rd, you send the acceptance letter, but it will be arrived in my office is January 4th. So it's still still effective acceptance because you already sent before the deadline. And if I didn't specify any method in the if I didn't state any acceptance method, so the acceptance sent by any reasonable is still the effective. Offerer may opt out. Mailbox rules do not apply. So offerer can opt out the mailbox rule by stating in the offer that acceptance will be received to be effective. So in such case, acceptance must be received before the offer terminates. So that makes sense because if I didn't state anything, so you can follow the mailbox rule that because I just say okay, just accept before the January 3rd, and on January 3rd you sent an email of acceptance, but it's arrived to my office is the January 4th. So if I didn't state anything, so that is still the effective acceptance. But if I state in the offer that the acceptance must be received, okay, so which means that if you send an email, the mail letter on January 3rd and it's arrived to my office is January 4th, so it's ineffective acceptance because it passed the deadline. So for example, on November 1st, D sent us an email offering to sell us a vase. The offer provided that an acceptance must be received by 5 p.m. on November 2nd. At 3 p.m. on November 1st, Steve sent D an acceptance by overnight mail, but the acceptance did not reach D until November 3rd. So there is no enforceable contract because the acceptance came too late. It's past the deadline. So the offer provided that the acceptance has to be received by 5 p.m. on November 2nd. So the mailbox rules do not apply. So it will create what? Do you remember? It's a counter offer. Okay. So the thing you need to remember is you probably will see the mailbox rule questions. Often it is coupled with the revocability issue. The key to approach such questions is the three-step. Was the offer revocable? Chances are it was, unless the offeree paid the consideration to keep an offer open. Determine whether the mailbox rule applies. So acceptance is effective on dispatch rather than receipt unless the offer states that the acceptance had to be received to be effective. And compare any effective revocation date with the effective acceptance date. If the revocation was effective first, the offer was terminated and there is no contract. If the acceptance was effective first, there is a contract and the revocation was ineffective. But be sure to remember the mailbox rule only makes acceptance effective on dispatch. Revocation, rejections, and counteroffers are effective only upon receipt. Okay? So remember, acceptance. Mailbox rule only makes acceptance effective on dispatch when it's sent. Revocation, rejection, counteroffer are effectively when it's received. Okay. Except unless it states anything in the offer, in the contract. Makes sense. Okay, so to recap, there are three requirements of legal enforceable contract. First of all is the agreement made of an offer and acceptance is called mutual assent. And the next one is the exchange consideration, that you get something and you get something. And lack of defense. So the exchange considerations is a price of contracting, and the contract must be supported by legally sufficient. So it's a legally sufficient. It's not fair value. It's based on legally sufficient consideration on both sides. And the law will not enforce gratuitous promise. So there must be something given in exchange for a promise for it to be enforceable. And two elements of considerations. One is must be something of legal value given by each party. Legal value is not the fair value. And the second one is there must be bargains for exchange. The agreement is of legal value if it constitutes either detriment to the promisee or the benefits to the promiser. Detriment, which means that the damage to the promisee, and the benefits to the promiser, right? And the promiser's promise is supported by the consideration only if the promisee agrees to do something he or she is not already obligated to do, which means the detriment, or the promiser will obtain some benefit. Okay. So possible items of the consideration include promise to perform as or refrain from performing, or promise to pay money, or promise to give the land, goods, stocks, or etc. Need not to have the monetary value. So consideration need not have monetary value if the promises is promising to do something that he or she is not already obligated to do, or promising to refrain from doing something that he or she legally could do. There is the consideration. So for example, I will pay you $50 if you promise me not smoking. Stop smoking. So quit smoking. So you have the right to smoke, but now you give up the right to smoke and receive $50 from me. That's just so cheap, but yeah. Or you promise that I will give you $500 if your firstborn son, I will give the name for your firstborn son. So the naming the son is the valid consideration. Or you have the right to sue me, but now I pay you and say that, okay, promise that you will not sue me. So you have the right, but now you give up the right to sue me. So after you receive that consideration, you cannot sue me anymore. Need not flow to party. So consideration need not flow to one of the parties. Promise to do something for or give something to a third party is sufficient. So for example, if Alex promised Becky that he will pay her $10 if she's promised to wash Cindy's car. So Cindy is a third party. So, and Alex's promise is a sufficient consideration to support Becky's promise, even though Cindy's will receive the benefit. So that is the valid contract. Courts will not inquire into adequacy. As long as the consideration is not shamed, courts will not inquire into the adequacy of consideration. So no requirement that the consideration exchange be or nearly equal value. Only requirement is that the consideration be legal sufficient, which means the legal value. Fairness is generally not required as long as it's not unconscionable and it is arm's length. So what is not the arm's length? It is a spouse, husband, is the lawyer and client, something like that. So which means that you take advantage of them. Pre-existing legal duties generally not sufficient. Promise to perform on performance of existing duty is not the sufficient consideration. Note that this means in the common law contract, the price term cannot be modified unless the consideration is given for the modification. So, for example, if Carol is in the contract to sing at the concert for Mike, but Carol decides that she does not want to sing, and Mike offers pay Carol $5,000 more if she will sing. So Carol agrees and sings, but after that, Mike don't pay her for $5,000. So is Mike right or wrong? Right. He's right. Because he does not have to pay Carol the additional $5,000 because there was no consideration for the promise because of the pre-existing legal duty rule. Carol was already obligated to sing. Okay? And the second example is Smith offered the $10,000 reward for recovery of his stolen car. Jones, a police officer assigned to this case, recovers the car, and John's performance of his official duty, so it's not the sufficient consideration because he's a police and he's doing his official duty. So even though he's not promised with Smith or no, that is his duty to recover the stolen car. Pre-existing legal duties generally not sufficient. Exception. So what is the exception? Okay, the exception is like the modification. So the same fact in the previous example, Carol and Mike is under the contract to sing at the concert for Mike. Like Carol now Mike asked her, offer her to sing 5 more minutes longer. Then they will pay. Mike will pay her more. So that is the modification is binding. So if each party offers to give something different from what was originally promised, no matter how trivial, so the courts will usually enforce the promise despite the pre-existing legal duty rule. An honest dispute as to duty is not sufficient. If the scope of legal duty owed is the subject of honest dispute, then the modifying agreement related to it will ordinarily be given effect. It occurs because the parties are given up the right to sue or have the dispute settled. The forbearance to sue is valid consideration. I'm not confident about I understand this. Honest disputes as to duty. Bargain for exchange. Something is not consideration unless it was given in exchange for other consideration. There must be bargain for exchange of considerations. For example, is gift. Promise to make a gift are unenforceable because it's lack of the consideration. And is no bargain for exchange with gifts. Donation to charity. A promise to donate money to a charity that detrimentally and justifiably relies on the promise is enforceable because it has the detriment. Past or moral consideration. If something had already been given or performed before the promise was made, it will not satisfy the bargain requirement. So for example, P saves Tim from drowning, and Tim then promised to pay Pete 1,000 the next week, and a week later, Tim refused to pay Pete. So Pete won't win the breach of contract suit because there was no consideration. He's already saved Tim before Tim told him he will award him. So Tim's promise did not induce Pete's act. So Pete had already performed the act. So that is not the, it's lack of the consideration. So it's not a contract. Okay. Next one, recap one more time. Elements of the legally enforceable contract. The agreement you made of the offer and acceptance. That is the first one, and the second one is the exchange consideration, and the third one is a lack of lack of defenses. These sections will we move on to the defense, lack of defense. So defense can make the contract unenforceable. So that's why we don't want is no defense, lack of defense. We don't. The innocent party's duty to perform is discharged because the party has a defense. So most defense make the contract avoidable, but few defense make the contract void. So we will we will know when is void and when is the voidable. But just remember, when it's void is the pie, and the rest is the voidable. Okay. So the types of defense of fraud. Remember, the incumbent is the MAIDS. M-A-I-D-S. M is a misrepresentation of material fact by the defrauding party. So the misrepresentations must be of the material fact, and the opinions or statements of value do not constitute the facts unless made by expert. Okay, so khi nào mình nghĩ tới cái types of defense thì mình nhớ là chữ makes. M is the misrepresentation of material fact. Và cái đó là phải được đưa ra bởi cái expert, bởi vì cái opinion từ người bán thì sẽ không được gọi là misrepresentation of material facts because that is on my opinions. So you don't need to. You are the buyer and you know that you will not rely on my statement because that is my product, and absolutely I will say, okay, my product is the best, my product is really good. So, but you cannot rely on my statement or my opinion and say, okay, so why you say your product is the best, but it's not? No, because that is not just my opinion. And the actual and reasonable reliance. A is the actual and reasonable reliance. So the seller actually and relies on the misrepresentation. So it is unreasonable for the buyer to rely on the seller's opinion, and the victim is actually and reasonably rely on the misrepresentation. Okay. So for example, if I stated that I want to sell the car Toyota Corolla 2023, and you actually and reasonable rely on the statement that car is a Toyota Corolla 2023. Okay, but it turned out that it's not the Toyota Corolla, but it's a Toyota RAV4 and it's 2018, for example, like that. And I is the intent to induce the reliance. The purpose of defrauding party is making the misrepresentations was to induce the victim to rely on the misrepresentation. So mình intend to induce reliance to make the sale. And D is the damage. The defrauder is reliable to anyone who suffered the loss. The defrauded party may rescind the contract or sue for money damage, but not both. Remember, not both. You cannot rescind the contract and sue the money damage. You just choose one. Okay, remember types of fraud, the defense. If you relied on if you rely on the the statement, the misrepresentation, material or fact, and you have damage, so you just need to rescind the contract or sue for money damage, but not for both. Scienter is intent to deceive. Intent to deceive, which means that the misrepresentations must be made with the scienter in intent to deceive. The defrauder must make it knowingly or intentionally. And defrauder gives information with reckless disregard for the truth. The fraud in execution and the fraud in inducement. Fraud in execution occurs when the party received into signing something that does not look like a contract, and it makes the contract is void because there is no meeting of the minds. So, for example, you are meet with the Taylor Swift at the concert, and you beg her to sign and just the autograph, and then when she signed, and she just thought that is the autograph, but it turned out that it's a contract to for her to give you the money, and when you sue her, absolutely you will lose because that is the fraud in the execution. Because it doesn't meeting of the minds, because she didn't know it that is a contract. She just thought that is the autograph. Okay. And the fraud in the inducement, that is avoidable. In fraud in the inducement, that is fraudable. In notions, misrepresentation. An in-notion misrepresentation has all the elements of fraud except the scienter. You don't make it intentionally. Misrepresentation is made in-notionally, not intentionally. The defrauder does pay for punitive damage and only pays compensatory damage. It makes the contract voidable by the party who relied on the misrepresentation. So remember, the fraud for the lack of defense, fraud. When turn to the fraud, you remember the myth. M is a misrepresentation of material fact. A is the actually and reasonably reliance. I is the intent. D is the damage. And whenever it has the damage, you just rescind the contract or sue for the compensatory money. Sue for the money damage, but not for both. And S is a scienter that you are intentionally. And so for the in-notion misrepresentation. In-notion misrepresentations have all the elements of fraud except the scienter, so you are not intentional. So you will need to pay the punitive damage and only pays the compensatory damage. It makes the contract voidable. Okay, the next one is a duress. The types of defense. The first one is the fraud, and we went over the fraud, and now we moving on to duress. Duress is someone put the gun on your head and force them to do something. So arise when the party's free will to contract is overcome by the unlaw use the threat of harm. If the harm threatened is physical force, so that is void. So whenever is a physical force, so that is void, and otherwise is economical or social, that is voidable. The fairness is not required as long as the terms are not unconcernable and parties are not related. Merely taking advantage of the other person's economic condition and negotiate a favorable contract if no threat is involved and not constitute duress. Need to sit down. Next type is the induced influence. Induced influence is the exception to general rule that fairness is not required. Fairness is not required. The party's free will to contract is overcome by the defendant's abuse of the positions of trust or confidence. The persons in the position of trust or confidence, spouse, trustee, guardians, attorney, use the position to take advantage of others' weakness, infirmity, or distress. Related parties have the fiduciary duty or fairness. Engaging in the transaction that is not at arm's length is the valid defense. Undue influence makes the contract voidable. Okay, so for example, if you are the lawyer and you convince the client, a person with the intellectual disability, to sell the lawyer client's personal property, so that is the undue influence defense will likely succeed, and it will need to consider the fairness. Types of defense. Next type is the mutual mistake. If both parties to the contract are mistaken as a material fact regarding the contract, the adversely affected party can avoid the contract. This generally does not apply to the mistakes as the value, because the value generally is considered to be a matter of opinion. So it's a mutual mistake, so that is avoidable. Mutual mistake as to quality. For example, Alice and Bob enter into the contract for Alice to buy the Bob to sell the Bob's designer watch for $200. Before the sale is complete, the party discovered that the watch is fake, so Alice may avoid the contract. So it's avoidable. The mutual mistake if the subject matter of the contract is not in existence when the contract is made and neither party knows it. This contract is void. Is void. Okay? Is void. The mutual mistake as to existence. If Anne entered into the contract with Bob to purchase Bob's car for $1,000, but unbeknownst to either party, the car was destroyed by a fire earlier in the day. So there is no contract. The contract is void because the subject matter is the destructive. Next type is a unilateral mistake. Generally, unilateral mistake is the mistake made by one party. It's not a defense to the contract, but must do due diligence before entering into the contract. One major exception is because the unilateral mistake and the non-breaching contract party, they knew it. They knew of the mistake, but they didn't say anything. So that will be the defense, and is voidable. Unilateral mistake as to material fact is the defense of the other party knew or should have known of the mistake. So, for example, if Shu entered into the contract with Tyler to sell Tyler the parcel of land, Shu knows that the land cannot support a building taller than 5 stories, but most of the buildings in the area are only 3 stories. Unbeknownst to Shu, Tyler intends to build a 20-story building on the land, and Tyler's unilateral mistake is not the defense. Why? Because Shu didn't know it. Shu didn't know that Tyler intends to build the 20-story building. So, however, if Tyler showed Shu that the plans to building before the sale and Shu remains silent, so that's defense of unilateral mistake is available. Okay?